What's up everyone, Renat here and you're watching the MMA Fight Channel. Today we're diving into the highly anticipated clash at UFC Rio in Brazil. Charles Oliveira versus Mateusz Gamrot. Originally, Charles was supposed to face Rafael Fiziev, but Fiziev pulled out due to injury, and Mateusz Gamrot stepped in as the replacement. For Gamrot, this is the biggest opportunity of his career, a golden ticket not just to break into the top 5, but to stake his claim for a title shot. Basically, it's a super intriguing matchup, a wrestling-heavy marathon man against the king of submissions, who also has insane striking coming off a brutal knockout loss. Let's break this down deeper, and I'll tell you who I think will really emerge victorious in Rio. In his last fight, Charles Oliveira once again fought for the belt and lost even more decisively than he did to Makhachev 3 years ago. This time it was Ilia Topuria who knocked out Oliveira cold in the first round. Before that, he rematched Chandler and beat him on points. Since losing his lightweight title, he's been alternating wins and losses, and increasingly, he doesn't look like that dominant finisher who just devours opponents. Now he's getting met with more resistance and stopped cold more often. Mateusz, on the other hand, came into the UFC, started off well, and I saw him developing into a clear top contender in the division. But then he lost to Dariush, started building a win streak again, and then lost to Hooker, who seemed like a favorable stylistic matchup. Nevertheless, Gamrot is still a very strong fighter with an excellent base, although he's not always consistent. Sometimes his wrestling fizzles out after one round, and his mediocre striking doesn't connect. Other times he can go to war for 25 minutes like against Sarukian, out-cardio him, out-wrestle him, and grab a win, even if it was controversial. And if we look at cardio, there's a difference here. Gamrot is sometimes a real Terminator. He can grind for 5 rounds like it's a morning warm-up. His style is built on constant pressure, constant movement, and he just doesn't break. His face barely changes sometimes. He just keeps moving forward, breathing steadily, and you get the impression this guy has a Tesla battery pack that never needs charging. But again, it's very important to note that sometimes either his preparation or his opponent's style doesn't suit him, and he gets completely lost and the whole fight goes south. Now, Oliveira, his cardio is good too, but it's not endless. Yes, he can also push forward, he can set the pace, but let's be honest, if a fight turns into a 5-round war of attrition, he often starts to fade closer to the championship rounds, especially if he's being pressured. Charlie's style is risky. He expends a lot of energy on strikes, submission attempts, and sudden bursts, which means he can burn out over the long haul. That's why in his rematch against Chandler, he broke and was almost finished in the 5th round. Now, let's talk about motivation. This is where it really gets interesting. Gamrot is hungry like a dog kept on a leash. He understands that this is his chance to beat Charlie. This is his ticket to the Champions League, into a real title race. And for that, he'll fight tooth and nail, clawing for every millimeter. Just look at his joy when it was confirmed that the fight against Oliveira was on. A fight that Charlie had refused for 5 days, saying Gamrot didn't have the skill set he needed or had prepared for, meaning he wanted a favorable striker. And for Du Bronx, the situation is more complex. On one hand, he still has a name, still has a big reputation, and he genuinely wants to get his belt back. He's also been written off and then come back a couple of times. But let's not forget, he has a ton of fights and wars behind him, and he recently got knocked out by Topuria. That doesn't just go away. Psychologically, it always creates a crack. You start to doubt yourself. You begin to think your chin isn't holding up anymore, and time is working against you. But anthropometry also plays a role. Charles is taller, longer. His reach allows him to keep opponents at a distance and land knees and front kicks. Gamrot is smaller, but more compact and explosive with his takedowns. He drops low, shoots for the legs, and this is where his height actually becomes an advantage. And this combination of endless cardio, insane motivation, and a style that wears down opponents' endurance is what Gamrot can truly use to turn this fight around. Because it's one thing to fight a fresh Charles in the first round, and quite another in the fourth or fifth when you're already gasping for air and he's still pressing with his takedown attempts. Now, probably the most exciting aspect of this fight, the grappling, because here we really have a chessboard. Gamrot is a wrestling tank. He constantly moves forward, shoots for takedowns again and again like his joystick has a stuck button on the takedown. First attempt fails, he'll go for a second. Second doesn't land, he'll try a third. He doesn't even worry. He's got an endless motor. His oxygen tank is always full. And the thing is, even if you defend his takedown attempts, you still expend energy, but he doesn't. He's like a persistent fly that will buzz around until you're exhausted. He might even remind you of Colby Covington or Merab Dvalishvili. But the problem is he'll be facing an unusual opponent. This isn't some mid-tier fighter from the top 15. This is Charles motherfucking Oliveira, a guy whose submissions pop up like mushrooms after rain. You fall into his guard and he's already cranking a triangle. You leave an arm out and he's already stretching for an armbar. You blink for a second and boom, a choke. And that's the whole point. Usually Gamrot's wrestling is his main weapon. But against Charles, wrestling can become a trap. Just like in his fight with Sarukian, where Sarukian miraculously survived. Truly miraculously. So imagine this scenario. Gamrot executes a beautiful takedown, puts Charles on his back, and the Brazilian looks at him with a smile and says, "Welcome to hell, brother!" And Gamrot will no longer be attacking, he'll be fighting for survival. In the clinch, guys, it's a trap. Gamrot loves to tie up, to pressure against the cage, but that's where Charles can fly in with a knee, land an elbow, or catch a choke. In short, my point is that there are a million ways this fight can go. And here's the intrigue. Can Mateusz use his brain and wrestle in a way that doesn't give Oliveira even a millimeter of space for a submission? This truly is a question of IQ, because one nervous movement and the pole will fly home not with a win bonus, but with a bonus for the best submission of the night. Only it will be Oliveira's bonus. So yes, Gamrot can dominate in wrestling, overwhelm with pace and score points, but every takedown he attempts is essentially a yes-yes, no-no situation. And the longer he grapples with Charlie on the ground, the higher the chance that snap, and it's all over. Hello, choke. Now let's break down the striking. Look, on one side we have Gamrot. The guy works with his hands and feet, but let's be honest, his striking isn't what people buy tickets for. He throws jabs, a couple of combinations, maybe lands a low kick, but the main goal is to distract you, make you cover up, and then dive for your legs. It really reminds me of Colby Covington's style. He's not a knockout artist, it's a working component of his wrestling style. He's fast, mobile, but not the kind of guy who turns out your lights with one punch. And then on the other side, we have this guy. Here, the arsenal is different. High kicks, knees, elbows, combinations. He can start a fight beautifully, catch a moment, and send his opponent to sleep. Gaethje can attest to that. His striking is always chaos. You think you're controlling the fight, and then boom, you've got a knee to the jaw. But there's a huge problem. His defense is incredibly leaky. He always gets hit. Chandler dropped him, Gaethje rocked him, and Topuria sent him to space. So Charlie probably still wakes up in a cold sweat. And that knockout from Topuria is a real turning point. It's not just a loss, it's a huge fat minus to his chin's durability. Every knockout is a step towards falling from a lesser blow next time. And here's where the intrigue begins. Gamrot isn't a puncher, he's not a killer on the feet, but even his punches could now drop Oliveira and become a threat because Oliveira's chin isn't what it used to be. So Charlie really has more weapons, he's faster, more diverse, can finish the fight on the feet, but he also has more risk. His style has always been, I'll catch you before you catch me. But before, he would get up after a knockdown, and now he might not. So guys, if the fight stays on the feet, yes, Charlie's chances are brighter. But let's keep in mind, even a not-so-strong punch from Gamrot could now be the one, and we could see a second consecutive knockout in Oliveira's career, and that's a completely different story. Okay, it's time to wrap this up. This fight is genuinely fire, and both guys have a shot. If everything goes according to Oliveira's plan, he could catch a submission or knock out Gamrot with a beautiful knee. But if the fight drags on, if it goes into rounds 3, 4, 5, Gamrot will start taking control. His wrestling, his pressure, his endless cardio, that's what can break Oliveira. And let's be honest, after Charlie got knocked out by Topuria, trusting his chin is like trusting a cheap phone in the rain. It might work, but there's always a chance it'll short-circuit. So my prediction, Mateusz Gamrot by decision. He won't kill Charlie on the feet, he won't choke him out on the ground, but he'll overwhelm him with pace and rack up points. And at the end of the night, we'll be saying that the Pole took a step towards the belt, while Charles might just start his descent down the top contender ladder.
And who knows, a Gamrot versus Sarukian rematch might not be far off either. That would be fun too. Guys, hit that like button if you enjoyed the episode. Write your comments below. Who do you think will win, Mateusz Gamrot or Charles Oliveira? Subscribe to the channel. See you soon, friends. Bye-bye.